Hey, welcome back, y'all. Jason and Michelle here, EKKO Nesters. As you can see, we got Bad Betty with us. If you've been subscribing to the channel and following along, you'll know Bad Betty is our 2022 Winnebago EKKO. She's built on a Ford all-wheel drive Transit chassis. You also probably recognize the one and only CaTuned off-road recovery package that we had added. And we've got the Freedom Van Go Raptor grill. We went ahead and equipped Bad Betty also with I like to call it the Topo 2.0 Van Compass 2-inch lift. There's a bunch of other mods that we've done, but really what we want to focus on today, and you probably saw here, is Bad Betty has some lighting upgrades by Baja Designs. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we went with this particular series, the actual reason they're mounted where they're mounted. You'll probably also notice that we have another box here. This is the Trigger 6 6-shooter wireless control system. I'm going to go into some detail on what led us to choose this, why we used it, and maybe some of the benefits along the way that might encourage you to use that system or something similar. I want to give a quick disclosure. We are not affiliated with either company, Baja Designs at this time, or Trigger 6 6-shooter. What we're going to share is just information we have based on the purchases that we made and the equipment that we installed. So let's get down to business here and talk about some lighting here. You'll notice that the Baja LP6s that we have mounted here have an amber lens. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the difference between utilization of an amber lens versus maybe what you might call a clear lens, where you're going to get more of a white light. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about lumens. And I'm going to get into some of what we like to refer to as lighting zones. So working a little bit backwards here, let's talk about lighting zones for a moment. You'll notice that where Bad Betty's LP6s or Baja Designs are mounted is just below the hood line, but right around the bumper line. This zone here is what we like to refer to, I should say Baja Designs refers to, because I've learned so much through just visiting their website, watching their videos, and really trying to get a better understanding of the product here and what stands behind it. This is considered Zone 3. Zone 3 is where one might consider just around 80% of your lighting needs need to be met, and it's probably where you and I, let's say as folks that are going to be traveling a lot of highways, maybe getting off onto some camping ground land, a little bit of off-roading, that's where we're going to want to get most of our light focused. Now, of course, there are a total of 9 zones. There's 8 that are very specific, and then there's one that's more extreme they call Zone 51. If you go to their website, they will very clearly articulate and break down each one of those zones, which will allow you to make, I would say, an educated decision and direct your purchase with information. Because probably as you've been looking for lights out there and making considerations like I was early on, you can be flooded and inundated with so much. Everybody's got the claim to fame, etc., etc. However, in doing your research, I highly, highly recommend you look at the Baja Designs. They've been around since 1992. They were born and bred out there in the desert, the dust, the dirt, off-roading, etc. The quality of the housings, the lighting, the technology that you're going to learn about through their videos and a little bit about what I'm going to share with you is probably, I would say, second to none. I mean, they have an IP69 rating. What does that mean? It means that this light can be submersed up to 9 feet, 100% waterproof, including the harness. It also means that this light has been put under what we'll call rigorous testing, meaning that they have taken a certain amount of pressure through a pressure washer, and I want to say it's between 1100 and 1400 psi, run at different angles and directions with direct pressure to ensure that their proprietary technology, their housings, do not leak or compromise with moisture. Now, talking about that, do not leak and compromise, there are people out there that have what I would say the knockoff version of this, and their ratings might be a 68. There is a big difference in that, especially when you consider this. Like you'd say, well, I'm probably not going to be pressure washing my vehicle. Why would that matter to me? I'm not going to submerge my vehicle 9 feet underwater. I get that. That makes sense, because in those conditions, 9 feet underwater, you got bigger problems the lights aren't going to help you with. But what you have to factor in is you're going 60, 70, 75 miles an hour down the highway. I like to call it the Forrest Gump of rains. Are coming at you at a direct sideways angle. You've got wind at you. That means that that water and wind is forcing that water at such a high rate of pressure that something could potentially get compromised. Well, you're not going to have to worry about this. This has been tested under more extreme conditions than that. So let's move on to the amber lens that you see here. I think this is a key area to consider when you're equipping your vehicle with lighting. If you do a little bit of research and you break it down and you take a look at, you know, where does the eye become less fatigued? What kind of lighting? How is the retina playing a role in that? You'll find that the choice of lens, if you will, happens to be yellow and amber. It is actually easier on the eye. There's some benefits to what it does with lighting in general, but it also reduces fatigue. So as you're driving down the road, and let's say you're in some conditions that it's gotten a little bit foggy, there's some snow, there's some dust, there are conditions that more speak to what we're going to call Zone 3's needs. That amber lens is actually going to cut through those conditions more effectively. If you had a white light, or a clear lens I should say, in perfect conditions where you're not getting the dust, the clouds, the fog, the snow, that direct beam is maybe going to give you a greater distance, but it's not going to be significantly greater. Again, we're talking equal lumens, which, and again, in a moment here, we're going to talk a little bit about lumens, but just definitely consider that when you're purchasing a set, where are you going to be, what are you doing, and what's the overall objective. And I would say that if you have some concerns with night driving, maybe what some refer to as night blindness, I know there's probably better terms for that, the amber lenses, especially if you get night goggles or night driving lenses, they typically use a yellow amber lens for a reason. It keeps the eye, it actually works with the retina. The retina, for lack of a better word, more appreciates that, and it reduces fatigue. So I'm going to get a little bit into lumens for a moment. What is a lumen? A lumen is basically, to just make it simple, it's a measurement or a calculation of the brightness of light. So when you see different lights out there, whether it's a flashlight, a driving light, a fog light, and they say, you know, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 11,225 lumens, that measurement or that calculation should be given across the board and be equal, we'd like to think. But I would say don't count on that, because a lot of what's going to happen with how that lumen's going to actually benefit you is going to be in the technology, the lens, the reflector, and how the manufacturer has put it all together for the purpose of your lighting needs. So as an example, let's say we had 10,000 lumens of light just flooded right here. We'd have this mass amount of light flooding this area, but really what is it going to do, or how's it going to benefit us driving? Well, if we take the same 10,000 lumens and they're directed as possibly what I'm going to call a driving / spot combo, and the technology, if you will, like Baja Designs has done, supports how those lumens are being used, you're now getting the benefits of those. So let's talk a little bit about what would those benefits be. Let's take this driving light right here. This driving light has not only a driving combo, but a spot, as I had mentioned. And the driving combo is about 42 degrees, and the spot gives you about 8 degrees. But what's really nice is really nice, not night, I'm thinking about night with these. What's really good about this is that what Baja Designs has done is when they were developing or manufacturing this particular light for these needs, again, Zone 3, and for the conditions of what we spoke about earlier, what they did is they said, hey, we really need to look at the peripheral angle here. If you think about it, if you had blinders on and you could only see just directly in front of you like this, you're going to miss out on things that are on the side. And when I say miss out, when you're driving, that could be anything from road condition changes, hazards, a lot of factors where you need that peripheral vision. Kind of probably when you took your driving test or re-upped your license, they had you take a eyesight test that had to do with peripheral. There's a reason for that. To kind of bleed away from here for a moment and talk about that. You know what, I'll tell you what Ford did. The next time you're in your Winnebago EKKO and you turn the key on, you hit the lights on, I want you to sit in the driver's seat, especially at night. I want you to barely turn the steering wheel, not only to the left, but to the right. And you're going to notice that there is a peripheral light that illuminates, that floods the left and floods the right corner of the vehicle based on where you maneuver the steering wheel. Now, why did Ford do that? Because they understand the importance of peripheral vision when driving or lighting, and that's exactly where I compliment Baja Designs with that. They were thinking of all aspects. That's 200 degrees of peripheral vision that they've allowed you to have. So when you're traveling down the road at, at governed speeds, if you will, 60, 65, 70, 75 miles an hour, highways that are maybe not well lit, back roads, etc., these lights are going to come into play, which you're going to see in some of the videos. I'm going to say clips that we've added to this video, where we have tested these in a multiple of, we've done it on paved roads that are real dark. We've gone off-road. We've been in snow conditions, fog conditions. We tried to hit just about every condition to see if Baja's claim to fame through the design was true. 100%. So, it's a little dark there. So, we talked a little bit about the amber lens. We talked about the lumens. We talked a little bit about driver fatigue, why the amber lens or the yellow light can be beneficial. And again, you can learn a lot about this stuff online. We talked about our zones. I want to re-talk about that for a moment. When you're purchasing your lights, remember, 80% of what you're going to need is going to start in this zone 3, from the hood to the bumper. That really makes sense because most car manufacturers, as you know, the lights ride below the hood line. There's a reason and a purpose for that. So again, all these things start to make sense when you start to look at the totality of what's going on with the vehicle from the manufacturer, and then you start looking at lighting resources and what they're doing. So we're going to move away from this for a moment, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Trigger 6. So give me just a moment while I grab that. So welcome back again. Now we're going to be moving along and talking a little bit about the Trigger 6 6-shooter wireless control system. We'll talk about why we purchased it, how it was installed, and what we believe the benefits are to having either this system or a similar system. I do want to disclose really quickly that we are not affiliated with Trigger 6 6-shooter by any means. We purchased this off Amazon. We did some of our own research, and based on, let's see, the end goals that I had in mind is why I made the purchase for this unit. So I'm going to move it aside here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the installation. I'm going to have Michelle bring us right back down to these LP6s for a moment. If you notice, we have the recommended wiring harness for the Baja Design LP6. When you go to purchase these, whether you purchase them direct from Baja Designs or you happen to call CaTuned Off-Road and you happen to purchase it from them, they're going to ask you, or they should ask you, if you want this wiring harness. I highly recommend it. Baja Design actually did a lot of work in making sure that this wiring harness here is also waterproof at its connections. So we're going to kind of move past there. As you'll notice, that we routed it through our grill, routed the wiring harness through our grill. That keeps everything tight, nice, and limited exposure, if you will. I'm not too worried about the exposure that these have, again, because what I learned in the research that I did through Baja Design tells me that I have confidence in that housing. So as we routed them through, you'll notice that we came up just behind the grill and we brought our wiring harness in. Now, these little pigtails, if you will, are part of the original Trigger 6 system. And you'll notice that we have our main connectors. Now you might be asking yourself, like, where would I want to locate this? I would say that for the purpose of if you have an EKKO, maybe another vehicle that's similar in respect to where you're going to find the fuse panel, or I'm sorry, the fuse box inside the engine compartment, I chose to mount mine directly to this cover. Well, as I was sharing with y'all just a few moments ago, we've got the LP6s mounted, and what the gentlemen are doing here right now is customizing a fitment here to the fuse cover so that this can be removed all at once in the event that we got to take care of some fuse changes. Very clean. Again, it's all in the details. You'll notice that we actually use some little mounting screws on each side. I have seen some people use a 3M double stick adhesive tape, Velcro, etc. Again, we pulled the cover off, we drilled through, and we used some mounting hardware because I wanted this to become a fixed permanent piece. I also wanted to know that if I need to remove my cover, if you will, and access the fuses for the vehicle or any of the relays, that this unit can come off very cleanly with it and be reinstalled. The other thing you'll notice, it has the two little antennas. Those are for the radio frequency, which allows it not only to communicate, but also so that we can utilize the Bluetooth features, etc. So let's get into why did I use this unit, or why did I choose it. One, based on my research, it had a great rating, good reviews. But the other thing is, I was looking for ways not to penetrate the firewall. As we all know, the firewall is what separates the engine compartment from the cab, if you will, this whole area. Now, the firewalls are penetrated from the factory in multiple locations. They're sealed. They tend to have rubber grommets. You can kind of see some of the penetration up in here. Not sure if we can get a good shot of that. So it's not uncommon. Most of the time you'll find, especially in old days, that the wiring does penetrate the firewall, is grabbed underneath the dash. Oftentimes people will bring it up through what's called the A-pillar area, and then I'm going to say route the wires in according to where they want their switches. I did not want to penetrate that firewall. Again, not because I don't have the experience and whatnot. I was just saying, you know, if I can avoid wires as much as possible, let's do it. So I'm going to take you inside here in just a moment, and I'm going to kind of show you the second part of what, if you will, made me love this system and bring it into play. So here we are in the cab of Bad Betty, and for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to refer to this as the bulkhead and where our dome lights are located. What you're going to notice here is that we do have our rocker control switch unit right here. Again, I'm using the wireless feature of this. There are no wires that have penetrated the firewall coming up through the A-pillar. There's nothing routing through here. This is all done through radio frequency. Now, with that being said, one thing I did want to share with you is the Trigger 6 does have the ability or capacity, or it's, let's say, built-in design to be hardwired as well. So those of you that may not believe in the wireless technology, you may not support it, it's not reliable in your mind for whatever reasons, and you want to penetrate the firewall, you want to bring your wires up through the A-pillar, and you just want to know that this unit is continuously hardwired, you still can do that with this unit. So again, we went wireless. The reason, too, that I chose to mount it here with the 3M adhesive tape is ergonomically this felt good for me. Now, you'll notice again that it's called the 6-shooter because we have 6 areas to control lighting, 6 rockers, if you will. I'm utilizing the first 3. You may be asking yourself, well, why do you utilizing 3 switches for a pair of Baja LP6 lights when it's a pair? You'd think that you'd want one. Well, remember, the Baja LP6 has 3 features to it. When I say features, we have a high mode, and I'll call it a medium load, or mode, if you will, and then I'll refer to it as just ambient light, a glow, if you will. So my first switch right here, I've got it set up so that when I hit that, I hit the high beams. Then if I toggle it back off, I go to the second. Believe it or not, those are the lower. And then you're not going to be able to see this because, again, it's just a very mild ambient light. I have the third one where they just glow. The reason I set it up that way is I think of this way. If I'm driving down the road and I don't need these 2 on, whether it's driving conditions or I don't want to blind another driver, but I definitely want more light on the vehicle, more visibility, if you will, for others, then I'm just going to use that one. You also notice that they illuminate, if you will. So, again, I have 3 other locations. I can add additional lighting. And let's say that I exceed that, then again, I could probably double stack this and move on. So again, we chose to put it here. We're using the radio frequency piece of this, if you will, the wireless. We've had 0 issues with it. We've been testing this now for just over a month, I would say, and we're pretty satisfied. So we're going to step back out to the vehicle here in a moment and talk about a few other things. But again, just want to kind of show you where we chose to locate this. 3M adhesive, double stick tape, all wireless, and again, 3 rockers controlling the lighting that we need. Welcome back, y'all. We are outside and we're going to do a quick summary on everything we covered. As talked about, we have the Baja LP6 driving combo light. I talked a little bit about the technology. I talked about the lumens. I talked about the quality of the housing, the benefits, if you will, for utilization of an amber light, everything from how the eye reacts to it, the retina, the way that the peripheral spread, if you will, of the light is, how the driving combo works, the different features that are incorporated. We talked briefly about how we chose to wire our unit into the Trigger 6 here, which is our RF frequency, radio frequency, if you will. wireless control unit where we chose to mount our rocker switch panel inside, which again was what I'm going to call the bulkhead in the cab where the dome lights are located. I talked a little bit about the benefits of where I thought ergonomically it felt good. Again, you can put it anywhere you like. We talked about also that unit can be hardwired. And more importantly, I think what we really talked about is the lighting zones and where you should start with your lights. So what I'd like to do is leave you with this. After this video, take some time, go to Baja Designs website, really immerse yourself in it. Make sure that everything that I shared with you, you see there and speaks to you, because I think what you're going to find is when you spend about $450 to $480 each on these, which sounds expensive, they're going to qualify themselves not only on quality, what the company stands behind in the technology. You're going to grab yourself a wiring harness that's probably just about $100, $105, $110. You're going to understand the benefits of that. And should you choose to go with the Trigger 6, I think that'll complement the package. These are just over $300. You'll also have some links down below that you can click on that'll take you directly to CATuned Off-Road, take you to Baja Designs to learn a little bit more, head you on over to Amazon where you can pick up the Trigger 6. So with all that being said, I hope this was beneficial for you. We're going to be adding more lights to Bad Betty. We're going to, again, revisiting different lighting zones. But for now, we really have seen some of the benefits of this and hope that you do too. So thanks for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button. Leave us some comments. If I missed something you want to learn about or you want me to elaborate on, do it. I'll respond. Thanks again. Take care and be safe. We're now here in the shop. We've got the LP6s mounted exactly where I wanted them on that CATuned bumper. As you can see, I've lined them up with the D on the Ford and the F on the Ford. I think the positioning of that will be great because we have plenty of peripheral lighting that'll come out of these LP6s, and obviously inclusive of our directional light. But as you can see, what we've done is we've taken the wiring harness, fed it through the grill, kind of coming back into here through our Raptor grill, rather than feed it back down through here. And that's going to keep that loom nice and tight and protected. And as it comes back up, we're going to be mounting our 6-shooter trigger unit right here on top of the fuse box. So the team right now is working on some mounting equipment, looking good and making plenty of progress. We'll see y'all in just a moment.